All right. Hello, everybody. Today is February 23rd, 2023. This is Kubernetes SIG architecture meeting. And I believe we have a pretty short agenda today. Okay. Here we are. Hippie hacker, take it away.
I will. A while back, we decided we wanted to decide what the shape of Kubernetes was, and it looked like this, and we have reached it.
Wait, you're not displaying anything.
Am I supposed to display?
I'm displaying.
Looking at your agenda.
Sorry. I'm like, go on.
It's not a presentation. It is what it is.
You said look like this, so I'm sorry.
It looked like this. Sorry, I'm looking at the agenda item there with the picture that's all filled in, pillared. Every paint by number is complete. The green stuff is good. Yeah, and that's exciting. And when that is visible on api-snoop.cncf.io. But when you first reach that, it does what we normally do. It shows you every endpoint in Kubernetes. So if you want to bring up the next page of, just go to api-snoop.cncf.io. What's fun about that is it shows the whole shape of Kubernetes and all of the endpoints if we want to mouse over them and whatnot, all of our history for our different releases. And what you can click on alpha or beta and see what's up and coming. It'd be nice somebody to get the velocity of where they are in the, the development and promotion process. But if we scroll down just a little bit to some checkboxes there, the first checkbox there excludes conformance ineligible. And that is currently.
Let me get our full green circle. Yes.
That means obviously to be for conformance. To be ineligible, it's got to be alpha or stable, and then it has to be approved by this group. So this is what it looks like currently. If we want to see our success, we also exclude the endpoints whose eligibility is pending. That second checkbox. This is the 100% as of today. I want us to stop, celebrate. We did it. There's a nice dance we should do. This is the day.
Yes, fantastic, great work. Like you guys have been working for years, and it's been a long road. Really appreciate it. That's fantastic.
Absolutely. I look forward to this year and in refining the last bits. I think some of that's going to come from whether we revisit some type of optional things in whatever optional ways, badging or stuff. But right now, the main thing is what we really think should still be part of it that we put off. So this celebration is just a slight small dance. And if you uncheck that second checkbox, this is the objective and key result all defined in one by one click.
All right.
And so if we go back to our report, or wait, let's go celebrate the other thing. Go to go to the top. The history, right? So if you click on conformance progress, it's at the very top of the whole page. Yeah, that. So far, we've had gray stuff that is technical debt, and we have completed 100% the technical debt as of today. And the red stuff is where we've colored in debt by adding tests. The turquoise stuff is where the community has done a great job at bringing things forward. You'll notice there's not been a whole lot of new endpoints since COVID. Either we have reached maturity or it's just we slowed down and it's fine.
I mean, things slowed down because yes, we reached maturity and we had a bunch of things being pushed that have been in years in development got pushed to stable, and the additions have been very small on a percentage basis.
Absolutely.
Points, yeah. But this is amazing.
You'll see that at the bottom of the page, actually, when things got introduced. That's the speed of change for new endpoints.
I'm surprised that there were none in the last few releases.
For endpoints,
the graph there at the bottom show basically technical debt that we erased. So there was no, so
Oh, there was no debt erased, but there were
There's
debt
no
erased.
debt erased in those releases.
Yep.
Okay. But there were, theoretically, there should be turquoise things in here somewhere, I would think. I don't know. I don't remember.
Not to GA.
Not the GA. Okay. Interesting. All right.
That I'm aware of. We'll have to go. Let's put that on the to check Rion to make sure. But I just top of the memory. That top graph is going to change if we approve this in this meeting or whenever the consensus is made. One color that's missing is these newly yet eligible endpoints. This graph is based off of PR being merged that we haven't merged yet, and that's Rion's part that's next that defines the body of work for likely the rest of the year. Be sure that we're happy with this work so that I can put it on the objective and key results for the CNCF for II for this year. I'll hand that over to you, Rian. I took some of the steam out of it, but this is he's the one that actually does all the hard work of defining the work, and then Stephen's the one that actually does most of the work, and I'm the one that gesticulates widely in the direction that seems best way to go.
All right, so I'll jump onto it. So after celebration, I will just pull it all apart and make more work. So what we've done, I took when I asked for an eligible endpoint to be moved onto the list last year, I got some very good feedback from Jordan Liggett saying, but some of these things should not be on the list anymore, which we knew all along. We've basically said in several meetings that we will review when we get to the end. So now we did the review. I created an Excel list. A lot of people actually from the mailing list looked at it. They identified endpoints that should be actually moved off the ineligible list and be tested. So there were some comments on that. So I basically made this PR to move endpoints from the ineligible endpoints list to a new list, which is endpoints that will be tested. So in order to maintain the 100% status, theoretically, we will basically create an E2E test for all the endpoints that is on the new list. Let them run stable like we always did for the 2 weeks, then promote that to conformance. And as the conformance promotion get merged, we will make another PR to actually remove the pending ineligible endpoints of this list. So this list, the idea is the next 12 to 18 months at the most, this list actually need to be empty. What I would recommend, we retain the list, that there is endpoints that come in that show up as technical debt, but they're in beta. There's some funny nuances in the way API still pick things up when they actually get introduced. So this is a bit of a storage space where we can keep that. So with monitoring API Snoop, with monitoring conformance bot, one of the other things that we will do is look for endpoints that come in that's not tested yet, but should be on this list, move it to the list, and then continually follow up and see when things come off the list. So basically monitoring and maintaining. So the API Snoop graph at the moment is pulling off this fork. So as soon as this PR is merged, we will change it to look at the Kubernetes main branch.
So you said there's a bunch of discussion. Is there a can you put a pointer to that discussion here? Like a bunch of these are like, how do we test delete core v1 node in our test framework? Are we gonna is that something we can test in our test framework, or is that why it was on the list before? And are we gonna modify the test framework then to be able to test that? Is that the idea? Or do we have a way to test in the existing framework?
The discussions so far have happened in Slack and are surrounding the message to the SIG architecture mailing list that says here is the idea and the spreadsheet. So there was the overall concept that Rian put forward, and then the not Excel, what's it called, the sheet with all the Google Sheet with all the endpoints and talking about why they were there. And there were people that came back on specific ones. And this is the what do you call it? The consensus from those discussions. And so this at this point is bringing it to bear in actually as a PR, defining the body of work that was discussed in the mailing list and in the channel. Because there has to get it to this point, to agree to the body of work is kind of the hard.
Yeah.
This is the pivot point of bringing that discussion to bear.
I mean, I'm all for adding more, right? Like none of, assuming none of them cause problems for like,
Yeah.
you know, the kind of reasons we consider conformance tests. I just, I want to know that you're confident you have solutions for the issues that, like, oh, there's a ton of storage ones on here, and I think that they were listed. I'll look
If
at some.
you're asking if I'm confident, absolutely not.
What we have done is we asked if there are
there
reasons they should be removed, and we'll come up
Yeah.
with solutions for them, because that's what we're here for, is to help create the solutions. We're not here to say this can't be done because there's not a solution to be developed. We get pushback when they say there's not a way to test this at all, right? And so those discussions have kind of occurred, and I think at this point it's discussions around particular, just getting more eyes on it, and it can change over time. But we just wanted that definition directly in a file controlled by this SIG in that owner's file. So the authority, we're trying to put it right in front of the correct authority to be in control.
Right. No, I'm all for doing more, right? Like, right. And so if we, I guess what you're saying is that we've addressed the ones that we know how to address. This is a list of ones.
These are the nuttier ones. They're harder. That's why we said, no, just don't for now, because we wanted to keep velocity going and focus. Yes. Now we have picked all the low hanging fruit. That tree has got a line about Stephen hand reach tall. Yep. Now we got to get the ladder out and get the rest of the apples.
Okay. Awesome.
So the other point, exactly as you said, John, that there should be discussion going forward. So one of the last points on my agenda is because we have the 2 YAML files now and it's public, anybody's allowed to make a PR and say, or stick this on or take this off. So it's really just making the work public and encouraging. As I'm the person that tried to get the list knocked down as fast as possible. So I'm all for PRs taking things off again. But then we'll have a history of why things are on or off the list. So yeah, so it's
okay.
So if,
I just, you know, going back to this, like what we did early on, part of the ineligible list came from, hey, does this affect user workload portability, right? Like registering nodes and unregistering nodes is sort of like cluster construction that I can't see from a conformance point of view. I guess you could have like if you want to say, if the control plane, you want to be able to create your own kubelet, like virtual kubelet, then maybe you want to know that, and you want to use that with any Kubernetes, you want to know that the way that you register and deregister works across them. But those are very, very unique use cases, which is why we could afford to make them not, you know, they're not part of the low-hanging fruit. They're not a lot of users are going to be worrying about that. And then there's permissions issues around the test frameworks and things like that. So anyway, I'm open for putting more on there. We have to make sure that when we do, like if it's a hosted Kubernetes, right, like GKE or EKS, how does that test suite, does it enable, does the cloud provider or whoever the service provider hosting that cluster allow a user process to execute those APIs? And if not, then we could be pushing somebody out of conformance for a reason that's not really the spirit of the program.
I've thought about this as well. There's two parts here. One is we need to update the conformance submissions a bit because we need to declare that running the conformance suite is destructive because it needs to be.
Right, you shouldn't be running it against a regular.
And then we go ahead and have tests that are conformance eligible, but not conformance required. So they are part of our whenever anybody submits a submission to CNCF/K8s conformance, it includes the results of these tests, and these tests are ones like delete node. And so when we see people, we'll just get a list in that next conformance release of things that we know that we want that will force failures in the next release.
I see. You're saying yes, like a provisional. This is a provisional conformance test.
Yes. Provisional, that's a good word.
But we want to see, does it break a bunch of people? And if it does, maybe we can not.
It's a conversation starter. That's it.
Yes.
And so
Yeah,
I think for
that's a
those
great idea.
endpoints, it would be a good idea. And the other one we've gone back and forth in is RBAC. I have never used a cluster in my entire career that does not use RBAC. And so that particular edge case feels like one that we need to corner the people that would fail. Like add that to the thing, start the discussion. You didn't pass RBAC. Can you tell us why? You know, and is that what percentage of people that's going to upset?
That one's kind of hard, right? Because even clusters that wouldn't honor it may still allow you to create the resources, right? So you can imagine a case where somebody builds a deny authorizer and they want to deny certain actions. You may not even detect it, or an allow authorizer where you're allowed to add RBAC, but there's a separate authorizer that lets a different team have access. It's not clear to me what conformance for RBAC would mean.
Well, let's yeah, okay. So stepping back a second, conformance for RBAC would just mean that you can the RBAC endpoints work and when you add, say, an enforcement, it works, right?
That's it.
The rules do what you expect them to do. Now, the conformance program in general, and this is like a sort of fundamental thing that very frequently gets mixed up, clusters themselves can't be defined as conforming or not. Just like it's
implementation.
It's the distribution has to be able to produce a conforming cluster. So like if you go and create a GK cluster straight out of the box, we may well have things configured in such a way that we wouldn't pass conformance tests. But if you set, I'm not sure if that's true, but if you set the right options,
I think it is.
When you create the GK cluster, you can create a conforming cluster. Yep. Any user can do that. So that's the criteria to be able to pass conformance and get your little badge. So we definitely, somebody could add an authorizer that does anything they want, but they might have to turn it off to pass conformance, and their users have to be able to turn it off then when they create a cluster, or they can't get a conforming badge. Does that make sense, David?
Sort of, but again, like going back to the how do you actually make sure that it does what you expect it to do is really difficult, because you have to be able to send, you have logically have to send every possible request, right? Because you can imagine someone who wires up a deny authorizer to deny someone to create, I don't know, a namespace named OpenShift. You would never be able to catch that in conformance. Like if that's your goal, you're not going to be able to do that.
I think we're trying to catch people that are sneaking by doing something like hidey. I think it's can I create some policies? Here's another way to do it. Can we run all of the conformance suite with the denied turned on and with the denied turned off for every endpoint? It's one, and I'm just saying that as a silly example. But there's got to be some way to test just the general functionality of RBAC as a whole across the endpoints we that are high priority, or we got to make some type of we can't test, like you're saying, for every possible input to it, but we can test for the general functionality and expectation that the most common scenarios do work with RBAC on a cluster that allows the use, that is configured to allow the usage of RBAC.
Yeah, I mean, we'll discuss it more over time. I think that you also mentioned optional features, and that's a mountain we've tried to climb a couple times, and we've fallen off each time. Yeah. And there doesn't seem to be an appetite for it.
Fair enough.
In the community. it's not something I think there's value in it. And maybe now as the project's more mature, there's more.
RBAC's the only one that I thought we should bring out of the
Consider right
optional into the, you need to support this somehow, as it's an expectation. The optional things.
I don't think we should make it an expectation. Like I don't think we should say you can't say your Kubernetes if you can't enable RBAC. Right? Imagine I'm imagining things like a small edge cluster or something where they just wanna they only have one user because there's just one user managing. Like there's one automation that manages it and doesn't care, right? Like they may handle authorization for creating resources externally to the cluster itself. So again, without some sort of optional badging program, like I'm conformant with Kubernetes and I'm conformant with Kubernetes RBAC, I'm hesitant to.
We don't have time in this release, but maybe for the next one, let's just add some simple string up the simplest RBAC thing as a probe, and see in the submissions for that release how many fail, just so we can actually know which distributions are currently submitting that wouldn't pass it.
Sure, the provisional thing. Sure.
Yeah, do the provisional thing. That way, it allows us to have a really structured conversation around probing for the optional things, and using this as the first use case.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's awesome. Great progress. And now we're gonna, I guess, put a big bunch more work on your plate. So that's you achieved your goal, and your reward is more work. So,
the morale, what is it? The morale will improve as soon as the working commences.
Back to the mine, slave. Fantastic. Only outstanding is if we can get some eyes in that pair and just merge it in, and we will happily go sort out the rest of the work. Thanks for all the support. There was really, I know I've been nagging all around to everybody to review things to get us in, but it got the job done. So yeah, thanks for all the reviews from everybody.
It's been fun to get to know the Kubernetes community in this in-depth, direct, like spiking into different SIGs and different, knowing people relationally now that are the architects of Kubernetes. So we've made a lot of good friends along the way as well.
Good. All right. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. There are no other topics on the agenda, so I think we'll wrap it up unless there's some burning questions somebody has. Okay. Thank you, everybody, and have a great weekend. We're almost to the weekend. I guess there in New Zealand, you're probably already in the weekend, right?
It is Friday morning.
All right.
TGIF.
Thanks, everybody.
You too.
Cheers.